Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Random House Children's Books Summer 2024 Preview. I'm Maggie Reagan, Books for Youth Senior Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, we're going to go over a few technical details. Thanks to our friends at Random House Children's Books, we are thrilled to be able to offer ASL interpretation during today's webinar. Today's interpreters, Kathy and Karen, will be visible on your screen throughout the program. Please click on the interpretation icon, which looks like a globe, on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen to activate the ASL video. Additionally, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned earlier. From there, you can select Show or Hide Captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. And finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. We have a wonderful event planned for you today, and you will hear from the Random House Children's Books team a little later in the program. First up, we'll begin with a conversation led by Editorial Director at Alfred A. Knopf Books for Young Readers, Rotem Moscovich. Take it away, Rotem.
Welcome and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rotem Moscovich, Editorial Director of Knopf Books for Young Readers, and I'm delighted to introduce our incredible author and illustrator. Hena Khan has been publishing books for children, including many that center Pakistani American and Muslim characters for over 2 decades. She writes award-winning picture books and middle grade novels, including Amina's Voice, More to the Story, Golden Domes and Silver Lanterns, Under My Hijab, and It's Ramadan, Curious George. She holds an MA in International Affairs from the George Washington University, has served on the board of We Need Diverse Books, and is a member of the Children's Book Guild of DC. Safiya Zerrougui is a cartoonist, character designer, and illustrator based in Montreal. Her work pulls inspiration from her Kabyle heritage, fashion history, bold colors, and intricate patterns. She's worked with Netflix, Disney TVA, Spin Master Entertainment, and HBO Max as a character designer, phys dev artist, and costume designer. This is her debut book. A little tiny bit about We Are Big Time before I launch into questions for the two of you. So We Are Big Time, which is coming out this August, is the story of Aliyah, a Muslim teen who joins an all-girls hijab-wearing basketball team at her new school and discovers that it takes more than talent to be great. For fans of The Crossover and Roller Girl, this graphic novel, inspired by a true story, goes big with humor and heart as it explores culture and perceptions, fitting in and standing out, and finding yourself both on and off the court. So let's bring Hena and Safiya up. Okay. One more. There you are. Okay, awesome. So Hena, we'll start with you. Tell us how you found out about this story and what made you feel that it needed to be a graphic novel specifically, since this is your first time working in this format. And corollary to the question, were there any particular challenges to that or joys working in this particular format?
Sure, thank you. Well, I owe it all to Eliza Werner. a educator who was hosting me at the Wisconsin State Reading Association meeting way back in 2020 before the pandemic. And at the end of an email where she was introducing herself and, well, we had met before, but reintroducing herself and giving me logistics, she happened to include a link to a story about the Salam School girls basketball team. And she said, I thought you might be interested in this. It's right here in Milwaukee. So I clicked on the link and read about this all hijab wearing basketball team and their turnaround season. And it read like a movie. And then I went on to read everything I could about them. And they'd gotten a decent amount of media coverage. And I just found that there was something so visually arresting about all the girls together in their matching uniforms, but also that despite that, all of their personalities stood out in the different coverage. And I wanted to know more about them. And I thought about the stories that I had seen in the past about female Muslim hijabi athletes. And even in the advertising, we see those athletes appearing more and more in advertising these days. But it's usually an individual, like maybe a runner or a fencer, like the well-known Ibtihaj Muhammad, and not an entire team like this. And that made me really want to tell a story inspired by this real life team that would hopefully give readers a similar reaction to what I felt when I read that first article, like just being in awe of them and all they were able to achieve and their heart and passion for the game. But I also wanted to give the reader a chance to dive deeper into the experience of one player and her personal journey along with this fictional team. And like you said, it was my first graphic novel, so I was nervous about succeeding in this format, but I'd had a little bit of training prior with DC Comics on comic writing, and then I received some generous help from the wonderful author Min Lei, who we both love, and I'm sure many of you out there too. And then, of course, with your support and wonderful coaching, particularly on things like page turns and reveals and places where I could let the art capture an emotion and not need to spell it out, was really helpful. But overall, I thought, a pretty smooth and really, really fun experience. And I'm just so excited about the way it all turned out.
Fantastic. Yes, I mean, you did a great job. So, welcome to graphic novels. Safiya, what drew you to this story? What made you say yes?
Yeah, so initially, I was just sent a short description by my agent, and already, like, I was like, oh, get me in this. Like, it felt like everything that I kind of loved about comics, especially growing up, like the sports aspect of it, and also the fact that, it represented my own community being Muslim. And this being my graphic novel debut, I just felt like, oh, this aligns perfectly. Because again, it is a story I could relate to myself, but also I thought that I could bring some of my own, artistic vision to it. I grew up reading comics like Slam Dunk, and I just thought it would be a fun challenge to take on a sports comic, which I had never done before, even through my shorter comic projects that I had done in the past. And this like story that's just centers basketball as like the driving force for this character development. I was just like, yes. And then afterwards, when I read the full script, it just drove home the fact that I was sold, seeing this great underdog story, the fact that it was based on a real story as well. And I just thought like, my God, I thought of the fact that when I was around Aaliyah's age, I also fought for my school to have a girls basketball team because I was like, this is unfair. And I just think back of that time where it was just a group of girls working together towards this impossible goal. We never won a single game, but I felt it was such a cool and great emotion and story to portray in a comic format. I just thought like everything that Hena says about how everything felt like a movie, like in the girls' story, I really related to. So yeah.
Yeah, and clearly you brought so much of that like personal experience for you. Like, and I remember when we offered this to you, we had no idea that you had played basketball as a kid, like at all. So that just felt like kismet. It just felt like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Um, so this question's for both of you, Hena, if you want to start and then kick it over to Safiya. But how did you go about researching this story? Each of you each of your jobs basically as writer and illustrator requires research for this. And each one is kind of different, requires different kind of research. So, to get all these details right, both visually and as part of the story. And also, like, as you're talking about, if there was anything that you're like, oh, this was super interesting or surprising or anything like that, like, let us know. But Hena, if you could start.
Well, I started with reaching out to the Salam School itself and saying, hey, I read this amazing coverage about this team. Is there anyone there I could possibly talk to? And there was a really nice administrator who connected me to the actual coach, Coach Cass, as she's called, Cassidy Masick, who coached the 2019 team that had this amazing season. And she agreed to be interviewed by me, which was great. And then she actually gave me the contact information for several players who were on that actual team. And they each gave me their time and insight and perspectives and different points of view, which was really great to get. And I really loved hearing about the coach and how she came to the school not knowing Muslims or Islam, but with a really open mind and this passion and love for basketball, which was something I wanted to include in my story. But I also asked the girls who I talked to really go beyond what I was reading about, the coverage. It was sort of similar as it tends to be in the media, they borrow from each other, and it was one particular angle. So I tried to dig a little deeper and get them to talk about what wasn't written up about them and what it was really like to be on the team, to suddenly get this surprise media coverage that they weren't expecting, and some of the pressures around that. And one of the themes that gradually emerged was the idea that they did feel that the media was kind of pushing certain narratives or wanting them to comment on things that they really didn't care about. And they wanted to be seen as basketball players first. And so that was another thing I really wanted to work into the story, because I thought that part was so fascinating and not something that, I would have thought about without having been able to talk to them. So in terms of fashioning the story, that's, it was really a lot of it came from those interviews and then piecing together the character Aaliyah based on, these actual real life girls, but making this fictional character. And then the basketball stuff, a lot I leaned into my family in terms of, games and action sequences and practice and the types of drills that coaches might do and things like that was, some internet research, but also really leaning into my basketball obsessed family.
Yeah, I was no help with that at all. I remember being like, oh, my husband said it would look like this. Okay, good. And Safiya?
Yeah, so honestly, it was really like amazing how specific Hena was in her script, because I play basketball, but I didn't play basketball. I didn't learn any of that stuff. So it was, yeah, part of what drew me into the story was how specific it was. Like these girls from a specific background go to a specific kind of school environment, and they I've never been to Milwaukee. Some of the places that are described I've never seen before, so that was really helpful. I leaned a lot on Hena's like script to build kind of like this visual library of the setting. And that's also part of, again, what makes the story so good is how it's entrenched in the setting. It's just everything, I don't know, it works so well. So yeah, like already that was helpful, but the fact that it was based on a real story, I watched some of the videos and some of the media coverage that the girls got. And just like Hena, I noticed how each girl, whether even if they're wearing full uniforms, they have their small little forms of self-expression, ways that they can express their individuality. And that's what I tried doing with designing each of the 9 girls in the team. So,
Can I stop you for a second? We can bring that up so everyone can see like that. It's going to be the second slide, so they can see how you design, just because you brought them up, so you can see how they.
Yes,
exactly. And they are.
Yeah,
so tell us about
there
it.
they are. So it's hard to make girls who wear a single school uniform look very different visually, but with hijab, what's really cool is that each girl wears it their way. Some have different styles. Some of them like like have the hijab like just like draped. Some of them have the more turban style, and just small little things like this to make the girls feel unique with their cultural backgrounds and stuff like that. And it was really cool to research that and just think back on my days when I went to like Islamic Saturday school and how I always thought the girls who wore the hijab looked so cool, like in their different styles. And I wanted to kind of show that a little bit with this like really cool setting of the school of Peace Academy. And yeah, so there's also basketball, which like is central to the story. And Hena was really precise in the script with everything, from the different terms for every move during the games. And I did watch a lot of basketball, which I hadn't done before, to get a good understanding of how to translate that thrill, as someone who's a basketball fan watching a game, and how to translate that into a comic format. So a lot of the research was just trying to just take everything and make it feel as authentic and as true to Hena's vision as possible. And that's part of the beauty of graphic novels, just combining art and writing and the one another, elevating each other. Yeah.
Definitely. Um, okay, well, actually, since we already have the slides up, my next question, we can go to the first slide. Hena, I beg you, please tell me the Mecca story. Tell everyone. The family banter, and that love between them was a huge part of what drew me into this story. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it over to you.
Well, on that same fateful trip to Milwaukee that I took, I went to the Fine Art Museum and I saw some art of the floor of a basketball arena, just like the wooden bottom of the arena, and the word Mecca written across it. And I sent a photo of it to my husband from the gallery, and he called me right away and said, "Oh yeah, that was the Mecca Center, the Milwaukee Exposition Convention Center and Arena, which was shortened to Mecca." And then he proceeded, like I'm in the art gallery walking around, and he says, "Did I ever tell you this story?" And he proceeded to tell me this. So my husband grew up in Milwaukee with his family, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a player on the Milwaukee Bucks when he was very little, which got the Muslim community super hyped because that was a big deal to have, this Muslim player and a superstar. And then as my husband grew up, he was also a big basketball fan, and he played and lived and breathed basketball, much like he still does. And so, as you all know, when Muslims pray, we pray towards the holy city of Mecca. And when we make the holy pilgrimage, the Hajj, it's also in Mecca. And it's a really big deal when someone from our community, when somebody you know in particular goes to Mecca for the pilgrimage or the smaller pilgrimage. And apparently my young husband thought that this whole time when he was growing up, that Muslims were actually praying toward the Mecca Center and making the pilgrimage to downtown Milwaukee. And in his mind, like that made perfect sense, right? Like, why not? Because basketball was life. So he tells me this story, and I was just dying in the middle of, the art gallery. And I thought, I have to find a way to fit this into the book because you can't make stuff like that up. And it's so absurd, but so like it makes so much sense too. And I love those types of little specific details. So I found a way to make it Aaliyah's poor dad who had thought this while he's growing up. And you can see in Safiya's beautiful art them laughing at him as of course one should.
Yeah, it's those leftover things from childhood, right? Like where you're like, are dragons or dinosaurs real? Like, Um, yeah, I mean that story every time it cracks me up and it's so relatable. Like as a kid, like you just get it. And I think it just shows the beauty of the banter between the family and how much they like love each other and they like can rip each other. The siblings in particular, like that's just so much fun. So yeah,
What are
thank
the
you.
odds, right? That it's called the Mecca Center of all things.
It's just perfect. Okay, well, Safiya, can you tell us a little bit about the different stages of the process? So do you have and also if you have a favorite or a least favorite stage?
Yeah, so graphic novels can feel daunting because it's like 200 plus pages of art, but thankfully they're split in different stages. So layouts, thumbnails, pencils, inks, and colors. So after reading the script, you start by formatting every page, trying to translate into just little panels and with thumbnails, little sketches, literally stick figures, sorry. And after that's over, and I send it over, get notes, that becomes little sketches that are a little, legible, thankfully. And then that's when I make all the adjustments needed. And after that, the next stage is inking. And that's where the final clean line work is drawn. After that, we get to colors, which is self-explanatory. Ironically, my favorite part about it is the most time and labor intensive one, which is inks. I just think there's something so satisfying about cleaning up older sketches and just focusing on making the lines smooth, clean, and dynamic. With thumbnails and pencils, even if it's super rough, it's so thinking intensive. You have to really take everything and try to think about it visually. It's a lot of planning and a lot of just pure brain work. So I love inking because you get to that point where you just start drawing and really, I love what I do. I love drawing. So it's just purely that. And that's always what I feel is the most satisfying part for me. I can just focus on the fun of it. Yeah.
I get that. It's you do all the problem solving in
Yeah.
sketches where you have to work in how is this going to fit and where am I going to put this word balloon, and yeah, and then in the inking you just get to make it beautiful. And
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so this question's for both of you. What was the most challenging part of making this book? And what was your favorite part? So you know what, the favorite part, I feel like you guys already told me, inking, but what was what was the most challenging part?
Yeah.
Hena, do you want to start?
Sure. I think for me, for those who haven't written a graphic novel before, what was different about this than, other types of writing is that in each panel, you're capturing one specific moment. And that was something that, you have to sort of train yourself to do as a writer, where you're like, okay, especially when you're writing something like a basketball sequence, right, where there's so much going on and different players doing different things. So that was interesting to try to think in these freeze frames and still have the story progress. So specifically with the basketball stuff, that was probably the most challenging, where I wanted there to be these action moments and to feel authentic and exciting. I also wanted it to make sense for the non-basketball fans out there, because I assumed that a lot of the people reading the book, I hope people who read the book are those who love basketball and those who maybe don't watch it. So or play it. So I wanted there to be these moments that were, felt really real, were essential to the story and moving it forward, but also just, really authentic. And so that was the part that I thought was a little tricky. And it was really helpful to just think it through with other people too, in terms of, what can we highlight where it looks specific enough to, because as we know, there's so many different types of basketball shots, for example, and what does this actually look like what I want to have happen in this moment? But yeah, it was just really fun. And my favorite part, I will say, it was just seeing Safiya's illustrations for the first time. I think that was magical for me, and really actually honestly emotional to see her bring my imaginings to life in this, beautiful way. And I think the opening scene of the book, where the family is on this road trip in the car and you see their personalities really shining through, and the little Allah charm hanging from the rearview mirror, it made me so happy. And I know that so many readers are going to feel so seen. So that was really, really beautiful to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, honestly, it was two different things. So, firstly, this is my debut, so I had only worked on shorter comics before, 25 pages long at most. So, going into it and thinking of 200 plus pages of artwork, it was definitely an adjustment with, managing my own workflow and understanding my own workflow. And yeah, so how many pages per day could I ink, or stuff like this. But on top of that, it was also taking Hena's story, which I could feel was really personal and very, she had really put so much of herself into it. And get, translating it into images and like trying to bring her vision to life. It was like in the beginning daunting and like kind of challenging, like, oh my God, this is someone's baby. I want to do the best like for her. So yeah, that was definitely two really like challenging parts of the thing. But again, like seeing it at the end, it was so satisfying. That was my favorite part, just seeing the whole compiled book together. I'm sure Hena feels the same way, of seeing all your work for 2 years, 3 years more into one, book. It felt really good. Yeah.
And you did such a beautiful job. Like, thank you for the care that you took. And it's really so beautiful.
Truly. No, I mean, this is just like a really magical pairing, I feel like, and it's going to show. Everyone's going to see it. Can't wait. So actually, well, Safiya, let's talk a little bit about those compositions. Like you sort of spoke about it a little bit about, the like really dynamic compositions, especially for the games. So we'll bring up the slides here. There's three that you can kind of scroll through, but tell us about kind of how you approach these action scenes and like how did you do this? Because that's something that I noticed so much in your work was this like movement and like, dynamic motion. So
Yeah, so just like Hannah said, it's something of a challenge to take, a dynamic, basketball game and turn it into snapshots and just like images that are like still. So what's really important when it comes to action scenes, and that's something that I learned while making this, is just the flow and the movement of the overall page rather than just looking at it panel by panel. So how can I take comics, which is such a cool format, just very unique. It has visuals, but also great writing, right? And how can I use it to enhance these action scenes? So in this scene, for example, the balloon is being thrown like, from player to player. How can I make the reader's eye follow that movement? And that's, all about how to put the layouts down, how to guide the reader's eye essentially. So that's what it ended up being all about. Especially, for example, on the page, you see the balloon on the top left, and if you follow the balloon with your eyes, it does the same motion as when you throw a balloon in like a basketball, in a basket, sorry. um so it was all about that, honestly, with the scenes, because I wanted to, like I said, bring that like excitement of watching a basketball game. It's very fast paced, there's lots of movement, and how to translate that into a comic, a still format. And as I said, I took a lot of inspiration from great sports manga and comics like Slam Dunk, for example, which I grew up reading, because these artists really mastered that dynamic composition. It also really helped that also Hannah's script was so dynamic. Like I could read and picture exactly what she had in mind when reading her script. So it was very much, almost natural for me to just try to make it as like as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and like even looking at this spread, right, we have these dynamic diagonals on the left, and then on the right, I love that we get this like grounded but like emotional moment, where you're sort of
Yeah.
pausing, and it's this like horizontal like pause. Like I think that's beautiful. I love how you describe this too. So this is our last question for both of you. What do you hope readers will take away from this story?
Yeah, I'll start. I first of all, I hope they're thoroughly entertained as they go on this wild ride of a season. I hope they're inspired and feel like they can do what they set their minds to, since that's what we see these girls really do. And I hope they recognize that change is hard, but it can lead to wonderful things and unexpected joys. And I just really hope that they will just fall in love with these girls and relate to them and the team and really root for them in every way.
Yeah, I know I did. So I really, I know they will. For me, honestly, it's that, even if you take the story that's so specific with like these girls from a specific background, at its core, the story is still and can still be relatable to everyone. There's nothing more universal than an underdog story where, a group of girls work together for a common goal to prove themselves. So, the specificity of like the characters' backgrounds, even if it just adds depth to that story and to that dynamic. So while I really think that like young Muslims reading this will feel so, you know, seen and heard, I do think it's still a relatable story just universally. Yeah.
I agree. Thank you both so much. This has been fantastic, and I'm going to pass this back to the Random House team.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hena, Safiya, and Rotem for that wonderful conversation. And everybody who's on the chat, thank you so much, and welcome to the Random House Children's Book Summer 2024 preview. I'm Erica Stone, Associate Manager of Library Marketing, and on behalf of the whole school and library team, we are thrilled that you can join us today. We are so excited to share some of the amazing books that we have coming this summer, and I will kick it over to Michelle to start us off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Campbell, Assistant Director of School Marketing here at Random House Children's Books. And first up, we have picture books. Get ready for preschool and kindergarten in this exciting new series for kids all ages about embarking on new adventures. The Get Ready series addresses anxiety and unfamiliar feelings, helping prepare kids for what to expect on the first day of school and thereafter. Author Vera Ahia, widely known as the Tutu Teacher, has taught kindergarten and first grade for the last 16 years. Her online presence is dedicated to influencing other educators by spreading her vast knowledge and love of inclusive children's books. We have a fast publishing schedule for this series planned, with more titles that will focus on holidays and big kid milestones planned for fall 2024 and beyond. From the humans behind one of the most famous and fluffiest corgis in the world comes a tail-wagging tale about a small but mighty dog named Maxine. And this irresistible picture book, Maxine the Fluffy Corgi, needs a job. Well, maybe she doesn't really need a job, but she would really like one for some reason. From working as a lifeguard at the beach on pulling a sled in the snow, Maxine tries and fails at for her friends' jobs until she realizes the key to finding the perfect job is doing what she truly loves. And through it all, Maxine teaches readers the importance of figuring out what they love and doing what they love with all their hearts. Bubblegum Bison first appeared in Blue Bison Needs a Haircut as Blue Bison's little sister, and her role in that story made her a complete standout star. And now, of course, she gets her own story in this new hilarious picture book from Pete Oswald. As the star of her own story now, she will do just about anything to avoid taking a bath because she is too busy having fun on the playground with her friends, and she has no time to take a bath. In fact, she escapes through the bathroom window to avoid the inevitable. This laugh out loud read aloud encourages creative thinking and problem solving and is a great addition for anyone looking for silly stories or stories about routines. Tate loves animals, but she worries about the ones who live in the wild. Aren't they cold? Are they hungry? Are they lonely? This is a really sweet and funny picture book about an animal-loving girl who invites wild animals to live in her house and be her best friend, but she gets mixed results. Complete with educational back matter, facts about animals, a light-handed conservationist message about how we must protect animal habitats. The sweet story will be loved by dog lovers and anyone who knows the joy of rescuing an animal. Captain Hoof and his crew of sheep pirates are headed home with their treasure. Then all of a sudden, smash, crash, bam, the flock has been shipwrecked. They're cursed and they're lost forever. They'll never make it home until a long-lost pirate helps the ragtag flock calm their nerves and see that things aren't all that bad. From the creator of Witch and Wombat comes a punny read aloud that shares an important message about being open-minded. Life isn't always easy, even for a ghost. And this funny follow-up to It's Not Easy Being Santa Claus, a ghost discovers that happiness comes from within when she learns to accept that she's simply too cute to be considered spooky. The perfect way to celebrate Halloween with your littlest trick-or-treaters. And now over to Jasmine for more picture books.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine, and I'm an associate in the school and library team at Random House Children's Books, and I have a few family and friendship books for you, starting with Tiny Jenny. Join Tiny Jenny, a mischievous fairy born to a family of wrens as she sets out to find her real fairy family. But when Tiny Jenny connects with the fairies, they're anything but welcoming to her, which comes as a big surprise and a true disappointment. Tiny Jenny starts to wonder where she belongs. With its gorgeous, lush illustrations and exciting story, this is a charming story for anyone looking for books about adoption and found families. Next slide, please. Nana's New Soul Food. From award-winning playwright Will Power and illustrations for Coretta Scott King Award honor and Caldecott honor illustrator R. Gregory Christie comes Nana's New Soul Food, which follows this energetic boy on an adventure with his mom to find healthy foods in his neighborhood. Motivated by his love for his Nana, who has to change the way she eats because of her health, the boy rediscovers his neighborhood while finding tasty vegan soul food. Next slide, please. Baba's Peach Tree. In this moving picture book filled with stunning illustrations, a migrant worker, Baba, and his daughter find good fortune in the form of a peach tree growing behind their house in rural China. But time passes, and so do seasons, and one day the tree does not bloom. But life blossoms in different ways when Baba comes home and announces that he got a job in the big city, where there are good schools and opportunities. Baba's Peach Tree is a story of the dreams we dream and the sacrifices we make, as seen through the lens of a migrant family. Next slide, please. Even better than sprinkles. Having a best friend is the greatest feeling ever, especially when you find someone who agrees to be the back end of a unicorn costume, who names their goldfish after you, and is always willing to be the dragon when you play knights and dragons. But it's terrible when something happens to break up that friendship. Now it feels like you are being hugged by a porcupine. This funny and sweet story is a guide to celebrating and caring for your besties, even when you don't seem to agree. Next slide, please. The Boy and the Elephant. Amongst the hustle and bustle of the city is an overgrown piece of land where trees and wildlife thrive. A boy who lives in a house on the lot next to it loves to visit an elephant there, an animal that he sees within the shapes of the trees. But one day, builders arrive. The boy can't lose his elephant, so he comes up with a plan. Unbearably beautiful and moving, with a touch of magical realism, here is a wordless picture book about conservation and children's ability to be powerful agents of change. And I'm passing along to Katie.
Thank you, Jasmine. My name is Katie Halata, and I'm going to keep the picture books going with a selection of picture books that explore self-discovery. The first is The Elephant and the Sea. Gabriel the elephant dreams of being part of a lifeboat crew in his seaside town, but he's too young and too little. But soon, Gabriel grows up, and he's too big. Disappointed but undaunted, Gabriel makes a plan. One night, a great storm hits, and it's his time to shine, pulling his oars alone against the crashing waves to save a crew in peril. The Elephant in the Sea is a perfect picture book for anyone setting out on a new path, encouraging them to face life's obstacles with optimism, from New York Times bestselling author illustrator Ed Veer. Next. Mamie Tape fights to go to school. Mamie's mom always reminded her that a journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step. So when Mamie wanted to go to school, even though Chinese children weren't allowed, she took her first step and showed up anyway. When she was turned away at the schoolhouse door, she and her parents took another step. They sued the San Francisco School Board and won. Mamie Tape Fights to Go to School is the story of one young changemaker's brave steps on the long journey to end school segregation in California. Everyone loves Career Day but Zia. It will soon be career day at Zia's school, and she cannot wait for Mama to tell her classmates all about her job as a seamstress and about the beautiful dresses that she sews. There are just two problems. Mama cannot take time off from work, and she also cannot speak English fluently. But Zia is determined, and she hatches a plan. When career day arrives, we meet a vet, a stay-at-home dad, and more. And when Mama finally makes her debut, Zia is the proudest kid in class. Everyone loves Career Day, but Zia highlights the common experiences for many multilingual children of translating for a parent in both a heartwarming and empowering way. Next. Rashi's Rockies. Raksha Bandhan is Rashi's favorite festival. Every year, her family comes together to eat and celebrate and dance. Most importantly, siblings give out Rockies, beautiful handmade bracelets meant to provide protection in all of their adventures. But Rockies are traditionally only given to boys. Rashi doesn't like that. Now it's up to her to inspire the change that she imagines. This is an empowering story of a young girl bold enough to start her own traditions and blaze a trail towards inclusivity. Next. Somewhere in between. Pink has landed in a new world. First, she meets Fireball, a red creature who rules the land of sunshine. Then she meets Snowball, who rules the land of snow. To Pink, it's all fun and games until the two creatures start bickering and ask her to pick a side. It's up to Pink to help Fireball and Snowball find common ground by showing them a third side, one where magic exists if only they can come together to make it. This whimsical picture book about friendship, conflict resolution, and the complex emotions of being caught in between is perfect for any child who finds themselves stuck in the middle. Next. Sometimes we fall. Sometimes you want to eat a juicy red plum at the top of a tree, but it seems so hard. What if you start to climb and the strong wind blows and the tree shakes? What if it rains and you slip and fall? This tender picture book by New York Times bestselling author Randall DeSev, with illustrations by Indigenous illustrator Kate Gardner, is an empowering reminder that to fall and to get back up again is the bravest and sometimes the most delicious step of all. And now I'll pass things over to Erica.
Hi again. Duck Duck Taco Truck. Are you ready to join the fun at the beach this summer? You'll love this exciting story about two friendly ducks who sell delicious tacos. But when they face a challenge, when a clever goose takes over their spot. This book is full of rhymes that will make you laugh out loud and is packed with bright and colorful illustrations of mouth-watering foods that kids will adore. The best part? It teaches young readers the importance of teamwork and cooperation when resolving conflicts. So, if you're a fan of tacos and trucks, this silly summer story is perfect for you. Next slide. Poppy's Family Patterns. Explore the wonder of patterns and the importance of fixing things in this delightful children's book. Lauren Semner, a New York Times bestselling author and demonstrates that every pattern has its own distinctiveness, but when combined, they can create magic, just like families. Next slide. That Always Happens Sometimes. That always happens sometimes to Max in this warm picture book that chronicles the pitfalls and celebrates Max's successes. He may not be the most compliant or organized kid, but he is full of energy, creativity, and kindness. And now over to Natalie.
Hi, everyone. It's Natalie Capagrossi, Manager of School Marketing, here to tell you about a few fictional picture books with science and nature concepts. First up is Kisses from Space. When Anna Manon was offered the chance to become an astronaut, it would fulfill her childhood dream of going to space. But it would also put the largest distance ever between her and her kids. So she had to consider how she'd connect with them as she orbited the Earth. She penned this sweet story about a mama dragon snuggling her baby dragons close. And she tells them the story of her journey and how she thought of them the entire time. With fun, lyrical rhyme, and stunning illustration, this is about the bonds between a mother and her children. Next slide, please. Heat wave. Sweltering, sweating. It's 100 degrees, even in the shade. Finally, a wind picks up. One raindrop, then another. A downpour. The sun sets and the moon rises. Relief at last. Renowned artist, writer, and MacArthur Genius Grant recipient Lauren Redness uses just two vibrant and contrasting colors in her artwork, coupled with spare text, to stunningly evoke the intensity of a heat wave and the refreshing relief that comes with an unexpected downpour of a cooling rain. Next slide, please. And if you spot a shell. In this joyous celebration of a day at the beach, artist Amy Sakura uses real shells she's hand-selected to make her charming illustrations. A girl collects shells and thinks of all the magnificent things they can be turned into with just a little creativity. She imagines one shell as a swimming cap for diving into the crashing waves, another as a magical kaleidoscope, one as a rocket ship to take her way up high, and another as a submarine. This unique book is a beautiful companion to another nature-inspired story from Amy Sakura, If You Find a Leaf. Next slide, please. And now we're moving on to nonfiction. First up is Evidence. From acclaimed author and nonfiction master Deborah Hopkinson comes this incredible true story of the doctor who traced London's cholera outbreak to a single water pump and went on to save countless lives through his groundbreaking research. Taking on the role of detective as well as doctor, Dr. Snow knocked on doors, asked questions, and mapped out the data he'd collected. What he discovered would come to define the way we think about public health to this day. This compelling and beautiful illustrated nonfiction picture book is a timely reminder of the power of science to save lives. Next slide, please. World More Beautiful. This stunning and lyrical picture book biography by acclaimed author Angela Burke-Kunkel details the life and art of celebrated children's book creator and Caldecott medalist Barbara Cooney. Barbara and her mother loved art and color and light. Barbara's favorite days were when she stayed home sick in bed and got to paint and draw. When Barbara grew up, she ventured out into the world with an art portfolio. One of her most famous characters says, "You must do something to make the world more beautiful." And that is exactly what Barbara did. It's a message that's sure to inspire young readers and creators today. Next slide, please. This land. This land is your land now, but who did it belong to before? This engaging primer about native lands invites kids to trace history and to explore their communities. It will teach readers that American land, from our backyards to our schools to Disney World, are the traditional homelands of many indigenous nations. This book includes back matter to further explain land acknowledgement and extend the conversation. Importantly, this book will help both kids and adults think differently about the land they occupy. Next slide, please. When Beavers Flew. Kirsten Tracy's fascinating and playful nonfiction text pairs beautifully with Luisa Uribe's detailed illustrations to bring this compelling true story to life about a little-known act of environmentalism. In a small town in Idaho, it was beavers versus humans. But one clever and resourceful fish and game warden named Elmo Heater had an idea. He knew that the beavers were integral to the wetlands, so he set out to find a way to relocate them. Using a surplus of parachutes left over from World War II, he devised a way to parachute the beavers into Idaho's backcountry, an area that beavers hadn't inhabited in decades. An author's note will help put this event in context for today's young reader, and this story is sure to be an important reminder that everything has a place in the ecosystem. Next slide, please. The shape of things. How did the first people explore the land they lived on? How did civilizations expand their boundaries and chart courses into new lands? Join history's first map makers. They explore the wonders of the world. In these pages, you'll find the tools ancient people used to depict their surroundings, methods different cartographers developed to survey new lands, and how we've arrived at modern map making today. Above all else, the thread that runs throughout thousands of years of civilization is the spirit of exploration that helps us measure the shape of things around us, the very world we all share. And with that, I'll pass it over to Adrienne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Adrienne Weintraub, and I'm going to tell you about some early readers and chapter books. So hopefully most of you know our Step Into Reading series, but just in case, Step Into Reading is a leveling system which recognizes different developmental stages of emergent readers and is designed to deliver a successful reading experience at each step. These books are a great choice for independent reading or can be a great supplemental teaching tool to any explicit structured literature program that you're already using. And these are the newest addition to the series, including everyone's favorite grumpy monkey chimpanzee. Next slide. We have a great new chapter book series for you and your readers. Bibbsy Cross has the same delightful spunk and flair as other iconic chapter book characters and is perfect for fans of Junie B. Jones and Ivy and Bean. Told in verse by prolific author Liz Garton Scanlon and packed with 2-color illustrations by best-selling illustrator Dong Ho, who is probably best known for the book Eyes That Kiss in the Corners. Bibbsy is the new friend your readers are looking for. We are launching the series in June with 2 books. Next slide, please. And then from the youngest investigator to mermaids to mysteries involving animals to young scientists and STEM-based adventures, we have new series in these wonderful and kid-friendly, we have new books in these new wonderful and kid-friendly ongoing series. And now I'm gonna send it over to Erica.
Okay, and now we're going to talk about some graphic novels. So we heard from Hena and Safiya at the top of the webinar, but let's revisit this graphic novel one more time. Yes, it's that good. Aaliyah is new to Wisconsin and everything feels different than Florida. The Islamic school is bigger, the city is colder, and her new basketball team is, well, they stink. And as they strengthen their skills on the court, Aaliyah and the Peace Academy team discover that it takes more than talent to be great. It's teamwork and self-confidence that defines true success. This energetic graphic novel is inspired by a true story and is full of girl power. Next slide. Buckle up. Meet Lonnie, a young boy who's going through some big changes in his life. His parents have recently divorced and he's trying to figure out how to adjust to his new normal. While he loved living with his mom and sister, he misses spending time with his dad. The short car rides to and from school just don't cut it for him. But there's a silver lining. His dad is determined to make every moment count. During their car rides, they chat about big things in life that are hard to talk about elsewhere, like divorce, sexuality, and racism. As Lonnie gets used to this new family dynamic and their heart-to-heart conversations, he hopes to connect better with his dad. This contemporary graphic novel is perfect for fans of New Kid and Smile, and it's a heartwarming story about a young boy navigating life with his dad one car ride at a time. Next slide. Summer Vamp. What happens when a regular kid ends up at a summer camp meant for vampires? This heartwarming graphic novel about making friends and getting into trouble is perfect for people who loved Witches of Brooklyn. After a disappointing school year, Maya is looking forward to cooking and mixing ingredients in the kitchen during her summer break. However, her dad's girlfriend registers her for culinary summer camp, which turns out to be a camp for vampires. Maya has a lot to learn if she's going to survive the summer, and if she's lucky, she might even make some friends along the way. Next slide. Sink or swim. Summer is almost here, and that means no more school and free time for new adventures with your pals. But what if your anxiety gets in the way of all the fun? Introducing a boy-centric graphic novel that teaches readers how to accept themselves even when they're feeling scared, set in the fantastical world of Just Roll With It. Ty, a 12-year-old boy and an avid swimmer, broke his arm and can't swim for the next few months. Once he is healed, he's afraid to get back in the water. Can Ty overcome his fears and gain confidence in himself? Next slide. Tryouts. Meet Alexandra, or Al for short. She loves baseball, but when she grows too old for Little League, it seems like her passion has come to an end. However, her friend Sammy has an idea. Why not try out for the boys-only middle school team? Al fights for her chance and makes the team. But with a 10th consecutive championship on the line for Brinkley Middle School and a team that can't seem to get along, will their season come to a halt faster than Al can say home run? This is the second book in the Brinkley Yearbook series, which all started with Picture Day. Next slide. On this slide, you'll see some of our continuing graphic novel series. We have stories about aliens, pancakes, tigers, house cats, demons, twins, mad scientists, and even scaredy squirrels. There is something for everyone here. And I will kick it back to Adrienne.
Great. So when 11-year-old Hank's mom doesn't come home, he takes care of his toddler sister Boo, like he always does. But it's been a week now. They are out of food, and mom has never stayed away this long. Hank knows he needs help, so he and Boo seek out the stranger listed as their emergency contact. But asking for help has consequences. Newbery Honor winner Jennifer Choldenko has written a heart-wrenching, healing, and ultimately hopeful story about how complicated family can be, about how you can love someone even when you can't rely on them. Next slide, please. Heartfelt and relatable, Are You Nobody Too is sure to resonate with the many kids who felt or feel anxiety about making new friends post-COVID. After a year of distance learning, Emily Sofer finds her world turned upside down. She must leave the only school she's ever known to attend a public school in Chinatown. For the first time, Emily isn't the only Chinese student around, but looking like everyone else doesn't mean that understanding them will be easy. When Emily discovers Emily Dickinson's poetry, will it help her feel seen? Tina Kane's newest novel, in verse, is beautiful, and her weaving in classic Western writers and literature, as well as Chinese historical figures, gives it extra discussion starters. Next slide. The Wonderful Wishes of Bee is the story of a smart, quirky girl learning what she wants and what she needs, and how sometimes the wishes we hold dearest are granted in the most unexpected ways. Catherine Nolte is a newer voice in middle grade writing, and like in her first novel, Back to the Bright Before, there's a magical classic feel to her stories that we know readers will love. And over to Katie.
Thank you, Adrian. We're going to keep this middle grade train going with a few fantasy novels to share, the first being Tide Magic. In Misty Shellwitch, magic rises and falls with the tides, and everyone is born with a magical gift. But people have started to disappear. Rumor has it that they're snatched by monsters, but Istaflit doesn't want to believe that, not when her own father is missing. As more people disappear from the city, Ista finds unexpected allies in Nat and Ruby, each searching for their own missing loved one. These three determined kids will need all the tide magic that they can summon to infiltrate the city's highest elite circles and dive into its lowest caverns to find how thieves, monsters, and the missing are all connected. This is a perfect series opener for fans of Nevermore, The Midnighters, or Children of the Fox. Next. The Magic Paintbrush. Amy has always loved art, but lately her drawings have been less than impressive. There's no passion, no personality, no magic. Until Amy visits her Lau Lau, her grandmother, and finds an ancient paintbrush that brings everything Amy creates to life. Now her creation, Luna, has taken over her bedroom and is running through the streets of Flushing, Queens. What awaits Amy and Luna is an international adventure filled with an ancient Chinese legend, a greedy adversary, and ghastly beasts. This is a highly illustrated series opener. This highly illustrated series opener is about finding your own path, the power of imagination, and the strength of family. Next. Faranor and the Ring of Fire. Farah sees her father just one day every year, her birthday. But this year, her wish to bring them closer goes wildly awry when Farah discovers that her father is one of the seven great Jinn kings, and that her wish has trapped him inside a legendary ring. Joined by Idris, the Jinn boy who she inadvertently freed from the ring, and her newly discovered half-brother, Farah must find a way to navigate the mysteries and dangers of her new world to save her father. This richly imagined fantasy series inspired by Persian mythology and Islamic lore is filled with action, magic, and self-discovery, and is the start of a new series perfect for fans of mythology-based fantasy series such as the Rick Riordan Presents line. Next. And Daydreamer. Charles' life is split between two worlds, one real and one fantasy. In the real world, he is a lonely, bullied kid who can't keep up in school when the letters refuse to stay still on the page, and is constantly in trouble for getting distracted. In his fantasy world, The Sanctuary, Charles goes on adventures with fairies and sprites and his two imaginary best friends. But when trolls move into Charles's apartment building and bring with them a terrible secret, the stories he's been told and the ones that he brings to life grow more complicated. This stunning debut is a profound exploration of imagination, community, and how the stories we tell both comfort and challenge us to grow. And now I will turn things over to Jasmine.
I have a few horror books for you, starting with It Came from the Trees. The legend of Bigfoot gets a bone-chilling update in this scary story. The wilderness is in Jenna's blood, after all, and her pop was the first black park ranger at Sturbridge Reservation, and she practically knows the Owlet's survival handbook by heart. But she's never encountered a creature like the one that took her best friend. Determined to save her friend, Jenna joins a new local scout troop and ventures back into the woods, but can she trust her new scout leader? Next slide, please. It happened to Anna. Sadie Rivera has been haunted all her life by a vengeful ghost, a ghost that doesn't want her to make any friends. The moment she tries, cue exploding light bulbs, chilling gusts of winds, and slashing doors. So when the ghost caused an accident that killed her best friend, Sadie knew it was all her fault, which is why she's not going to make any friends this year at her new school, at least until mysterious cool girl Mal shows up and the ghost doesn't bother her for once. But Mal wants Sadie all to herself, and she'll do anything to make sure it stays that way. Next slide, please. Give me something good to eat. Welcome to Pearl, a town obsessed with Halloween. The spooky decorations, the costumes, the candy. No one seems to notice that every October 31st, a kid goes missing. Mason Miller does, though. When Mason's sister vanishes while they're trick-or-treating, Mason and his friends are pulled into an underworld where monsters roam the streets. This middle grade debut tells the story of a boy who travels into an alternate version of his Halloween-obsessed town to save his sister from an evil witch and free the town from the witch's curse. And I'm passing it along to Michelle for a few more books.
Now with 9 books in the series, History Smashers has become a classroom staple for its kid-friendly format, fact-bursting content, side-splitting illustrations, and inclusive perspective. In this new installment, Kate Messner tackles the Salem witch trials for young readers, breaking down the myths and the lies and getting to the truth of what really happened in 1692. And the truth is, historians aren't really sure. But it is certain that religious beliefs, a changing world, and a few super nosy neighbors collided to spell disaster for one New England town. This nonfiction series is perfect for kid history buffs who've outgrown the Who Was series and are ready to dive a little bit deeper. The Race to the Truth series tells the true history of America from the perspective of different communities. These books correct common falsehoods and celebrate underrepresented heroes and achievements. They encourage readers to ask questions and to approach new information thoughtfully. Written by David Dorado Roma, who grew up and lived on the border between the United States and Mexico, Borderland tells the Mexican-American story. Usually that story is carefully presented as a story of immigrants, migrants crossing borders, drawn to the promise of a better life. In reality, Mexicans were on this land long before any borders even existed. This is an opportunity to August 2024. This will be read many Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations and lessons, and of course, available to be included in lessons throughout the year. Next slide. We have some great middle grade series that are continuing this summer. All of these are great choices for reluctant readers looking for the next Ready Player One, Dog Man, or The Last Kids on Earth. Next slide, please. In addition, we also have some great middle grade titles that are now available in paperback for the first time, which will be great for classroom library editions, from Black queer main characters to immigrant kids juggling pressures from their parents to fantasy quests filled with magic. There is something here for everyone. And back over to Adrienne.
We are so excited to bring you, your readers, and especially your Tamora Pierce fans, the first graphic novel adaptation in the Protector of the Small series. First test starts the adventure of Kel, who wants to become the first female knight in Tortal, and is about believing in yourself and overcoming all odds. This format combines the action and adventure from the novel in a way that the new and old fans of the series will love. Tammy's fans have been asking for graphic novels, and here they come. Next slide. Lucy Knisley is the critically acclaimed award-winning New York Times bestselling comics creator of Relish and Kid Gloves and her middle grade Peapod Farm series. Some of you might know her Liney the House Cat webcomic. Woe is a gathering of her antics in book form. This one is for fans of graphic novels and cats. Next slide. Now for something very different. Through a decade of moving journal entries, Mallory Smith gives a firsthand account of what it means to live with and be dying from a terminal illness. First published by Random House Adult in 2019, this YA version makes Mallory's story a gripping memoir for teens, as it was always meant to be. This is the poignant true story of a young woman who refused to be defined by chronic illness. Her light and her life are shared here in her own words to encourage everyone to live life to the fullest. And over to Katie.
All right, thank you. We're going to keep the YA going with some fantasy books now, starting with Blood at the Root. 10 years ago, Malik's life changed forever the night his mother mysteriously vanished, and he discovered that he had uncontrollable powers. Since then, he's kept his abilities hidden, but a daring act to rescue his foster brother Tay reveals an unexpected connection with his long-lost grandmother, a legendary conjurer with ties to a hidden magical university that Malik's mother attended. Soon, Malik finds himself at Kamen University, where his eyes are open to a future that he could never have envisioned for himself. In a search for answers about his heritage, his power, and what really happened to his mother, Malik exposes the cracks in his new magical community. These cracks threaten what's left of his old family as well as his new one. This heart-pounding fantasy series opener is a rich tapestry of atmosphere, intrigue, and emotion. Next. Liar's Test. Belle Silverleaf is a liar. It's how she survived. It's how all tree singers have survived after they were invaded by the Risen and their gods. But now Belle is one of 7 girls competing in the Queen's Test, a deadly challenge to determine who will rule for the next 25 years. If Belle wins, she'll use her power to help her people and get revenge on the Risen. But Belle doesn't know how much she's been lied to, that she's part of a conspiracy stretching back generations that will put her up against the gods themselves. Aboriginal writer Amblin Kwai Mullina has created a fast-paced, twisty narrative and an unforgettable heroine inspired by the strength and power of Aboriginal women. Next. Moonstorm. Hoi Young was just 10 years old when Imperial forces destroyed her rebel moon home. Now, 6 years later, she's a citizen of the very empire that made her an orphan. Desperate to shake her rebel past, Hoi Young dreams of one day becoming a Lancer pilot, an elite group of warriors who fly into battle using the Empire's most advanced tech. When an attack on her boarding school leaves Hoi Young and her classmates stranded on an Imperial space fleet, her dreams quickly become a reality. But training is nothing like what she expected, and secrets, like the fate of the fleet's previous Lancer squad and hidden truths about the rebellion itself, are stacking up. And when Hoi Young uncovers a conspiracy that puts their entire world at risk, she's forced to make a choice between her rebel past and an empire she's no longer sure she can trust. New York Times bestselling author Yoon-Ha Lee has created an adrenaline-fueled sci-fi adventure inspired by Korean history and heritage in this series opener. Next. Storm. In her first speculative novel, New York Times bestselling author and award-winning author Tiffany D. Jackson brings us the epic origin story of beloved superhero Storm. Before she was the Storm of Marvel's X-Men, she was Aurora of Cairo, a teenage thief on the streets of Egypt, until her growing powers catch the eye of a villain who steals people's souls. Next. Heart of the World. Magic and sacrifice will collide as lovers and gods, enemies and allies vie for the fate of the world in this heart-pounding sequel to The Isle of the Gods, which Stephanie Garber called deliciously diabolical and full of heart. Book 1 in the series also garnered rave reviews from the review journals, with Kirkus calling it a thrilling series opener and Booklist saying, sweeping adventure, sleeping gods, magic, and heartwarming love and friendship, a winner. This is one sequel that you won't want to miss. Next. The Mirror of Beasts. Alexandra Bracken is back with the electrifying sequel to Silver in the Bone. With the dream of Avalon in ruins, Tasman and her friends are all that stand in the way of the Lord of Death's plan to unleash horrors on the world of the living. As the Wild Hunt carves a bloody path across the continents, Tasman is mustering allies, tracking down powerful artifacts, and traversing into new lands in search of a way to stop him. Arthurian legend bleeds into contemporary action, and scars of the past are torn open anew by a star-crossed love that refuses to go quietly. This riveting conclusion to the Silver and Bone duology will hold you in its thrall until the very last page. Next. Practical rules for cursed witches. Magic is in Delilah B's blood. Her absentee father is the world's most famous curse breaker, while all the women in her family are fated to never find true love. In order to complete her magical training, Delilah is tasked with breaking a powerful family's curse. Every generation of pair of Penumbra twins is doomed, with one twin draining the other of their life and their magic. Kieran grows weaker while his sister Briar becomes something monstrous. But as Delilah and the twins set out on their quest, they quickly realize that breaking the Penumbra curse isn't going to be as simple, and Delilah's own affliction, to never find true love, gets in the way when she falls for the girl that she's trying to save. This cozy fantasy romance is perfect for fans of So This Is Ever After, Carry On, Legends and Lattes, and Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. And now I will turn things over to Natalie.
Hello again. Now we're ready to talk about a few stories that will melt your heart. YA romance. First up is Wild About You. Natalie Hart has always been unapologetically herself. But then comes her freshman year of college when she loses her merit scholarship and gains one pesky little anxiety diagnosis. Natalie decides to shoot her shot and applies to Wild Adventures, a popular outdoorsy reality show where she meets Finn, her outdoorsy teammate. Is it friction or is it flirtation? Turns out falling in love might be the wildest adventure of all. Next slide, please. 10 Things I Hate About Prom. Well, there are probably more than 10 things to hate about prom, but the worst thing is when your lovable best friend wants to go with someone else. This is a charming rom-com that features Latinx characters, a friends to lovers twist, and it's full of the antics and excitement that come from your last couple of months of your senior year. Next slide, please. Beach Cute. From the author of the hit Kissing Booth series comes another sizzling story following 3 very different girls on summer vacation. Equal parts romance and humor, this is the story of 3 strangers who do have one other thing in common. They are on their way to the same resort. As their lives collide in unexpected ways, they might just have a summer they'll never forget. Next slide, please. When Story, the daughter of a diplomat, fake dates a Scottish celebrity in Italy, she soon finds herself living her own Roman holiday until the feelings get real and the paparazzi's knives come out. Pretending to be Luca's guide, then his girlfriend gets the paparazzi's attention. And what's true and what's fake gets blurry as their different worlds crash together. Next slide, please. Hearts Overboard. After a very public breakup during which her ex, Caleb, tells her how boring she is, Savannah Moore decides that going with her mom on her company cruise to Alaska might make her seem more appealing. It won't be easy, though. Her longtime nemesis, Tanner Woods, is also on the ship. His family and Savannah's are friends, and Tanner knows her better than she'd like to admit. Except after spending so much time with Tanner, Savannah's not sure Caleb is the one she wants anymore. This is a rivals to lovers romance with a lush setting. Next slide, please. This is a swoon-worthy YA rivals to lovers romance between a Nebraskan cowboy and a California girl, thrust together on the Oregon Trail. Riley Thomas is feeling stuck. She's moved from California to Nebraska. She's on a week-long Oregon Trail family bonding excursion, and her luggage is lost. There's no one her age on the trip except a tall, dark, and irksome cowboy who wrongly assumes she has zero ability to handle the great outdoors. She can't wait for this misery to end, even though going home isn't even possible anymore. But under a wide prairie sky of puffy clouds and bright stars, everything comes into focus, including a cowboy's heart. Next slide, please. Love requires chocolate. Whitney Curry is primed to have an epic semester abroad in Paris. She's created the perfect itinerary and many, many to-do lists. She anticipates a grand adventure in her idol Josephine Baker's old stomping grounds. But all is not as she imagined when she struggles to juggle schoolwork, homesickness, and French. Cue a cute tutor who's determined to show Whitney the real Paris. This is a story that features a young Black character falling in love and also explores Black history in Paris. Next slide, please. Love is in the Hair. This is a feminist coming-of-age comedy that follows the endless humiliations, unrequited obsessions, and all-consuming friendships of 15-year-old Evia as she leads a body hair positive revolution at her school. Leading a feminist movement at school is not easy. Boys often look at her like she's a total weirdo, and the self-proclaimed Smoothilicious girls start their own campaign in retaliation. As Evia struggles with feeling strong enough to lead, she falls back on the best thing she has, hope. Her message is simple. We can make this world a more accepting, less judgmental place for girls to live in, one hairy leg at a time. And with that, I'll pass it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Natalie. Hope Jahren is a teacher and a scientist, and she has been recognized as one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people and is the recipient of 3 Fulbright Awards. She is the author of 2 nonfiction works, The Story of More and Lab Girl, which was the winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for autobiography. This is Hope's historical fiction debut. In this brand new reimagining, Mary Jane, the red-headed spark from Mark Twain's Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, who stole Huck's heart in just 30 pages, comes to life with her own story of adventuring down the Mississippi River in the 1840s. In this story, you'll come to know the real Mary Jane, a girl on her own dangerous and unpredictable journey down that Mississippi River in pre-Civil War America. Equipped with an uncanny ability for mathematics, a talent for sewing, and a bale of beaver skins, Mary Jane navigates deadly illnesses, angry mobs, treacherous landowners, outright thieves and swindlers, and more than 1,000 miles of muddy water. What's more, she thrives in the face of these challenges. Hope offers a wealth of layered characters and deeply researched, authentic details of changing times in the North and South. Using the language and style of Mark Twain and shifting the point of view to a smart and determined young woman, she explores timeless themes of family, romance, and betrayal with grit and courage at the core. Next slide, please. A teen girl's attempt to make amends with her former friend group takes a sinister turn during a weekend getaway at an ancestral Irish estate in this atmospheric literary horror from the author of Those We Drown. Hand this to readers of beautiful and eerie speculative fiction, such as House of Hollow and Dark and Shallow Lies, and to anyone who's a fan of Hill House on Netflix. Next slide. YA crossover readers have been calling for more steamy romantasy, and The Girl with No Reflection is exactly the kind of read fans will flock to. This debut is both deeply haunting and intensely romantic, featuring a slow burn enemies to lovers romance and a love triangle between Ying, her husband-to-be, and his own reflection, making this the perfect book to satisfy readers' cravings. The author draws on her rich Chinese Australian heritage to craft the world in The Girl in No Reflection, creating a rich fantasy kingdom that readers of Gina Chen and Amelie Wen Zhao will want to dive into. And now back over to Jasmine.
I have a few thriller YA books for you, starting with Seasick. From New York Times bestselling author Kristen Cass and Pintip Dunn comes a gripping thriller you cannot miss out on. Ex-best friends Naya Morgan and Yana von Preseret have always felt like outsiders in their small Oklahoma town, but this year, everything changes when they are inducted into an exclusive society. Unimaginable opportunities await them, starting with a celebratory yacht trip to Bermuda. Then one of their classmates is brutally murdered, leaving them stuck at sea with a killer. Yana and Naya may have avoided each other for years, yet rekindling their friendship might be the only way they'll both survive. Next slide, please. Color of a Lie. In 1955, a Black family passes for white and moves to a white-only town in suburbs. Caught between two worlds, a teen boy starts unraveling dark secrets about the white town and its inhabitants. Passing starts to feel even more suffocating and dangerous than he could have imagined, expertly weaving together real historical events with important reflections on being Black in America. Acclaimed author Kim Johnson powerfully connects readers to the experience of being forced to live a life-threatening lie or embrace an equally deadly truth. Next slide, please. 6 of Sorrows. 16 years ago, 6 girls were born on the same day, and now, on their birthday, one of them is missing. If there's any bright side to the situation, disappearance brings the 6 girls back together after a rift caused their friendship to fracture. Their sisterhood feels as strong as it was years ago. But when another one of them disappears, they all agree that they must have more in common than simply their birthdays. They all feel it. Something has been waiting for them, and that something has come to claim them, one by one. Next slide, please. Midnight Game. From the author of Win, Lose, Kill, we have a new classic horror story for a new generation. When a group of 6 strangers who have only ever spoken on a creepy did it thread decided to meet in real life, they have one plan in mind. They are going to play the Midnight Game and summon the Midnight Man. Rules of the game are simple. Do not turn on the lights, do not go to sleep, do not leave the building, and once you start the game, you must finish it. Next slide, please. I Will Never Leave You. This emotional debut thriller follows a teen girl named Maya, who is being haunted by the ghost of her toxic ex-girlfriend, Alana. After 4 years of dating and on the precipice of graduating high school, Maya has been too terrified to consider the idea of life outside of their volatile relationship until she finds the courage to break up with Alana while they're hiking in the Southern California. Then Alana goes missing, but Alana isn't truly gone, not really, and she isn't going to let Maya go so easily. Next slide, please. Such Charming Liars. The newest mystery from the author of One of Us is Lying, the queen of thriller, Carrie McManus. When mother-daughter grifters set out on their final job at billionaire Russ Sutherland's birthday party, she doesn't expect to run into her stepfather, Liam, and his father from her mother's 48-hour marriage. Kat and Liam are on a collision course to disaster when a Sutherland dies. They realize they might actually be in the killer's crosshairs themselves. Somehow Kat and Liam are the new targets, and they can't trust anyone except each other. Or can they? Because if there's one thing both Kat and Liam know, it's how to lie. They learned from the best. Next slide, please. Silent Sisters. This must-read suspense novel is about 2 sisters who went missing on their class trip. Grace, the outgoing athlete who's friends with just about everyone, and Maddie, who rather absorb herself in her drone than talk to her classmates. But when Grace is found injured and with no memory of what happened, and Maddie's clothes are covered in blood, everyone thinks she's lying. Desperate to save her sister and prove her innocence, Grace must piece together what happened on that school trip, and with the help of her sister's notebook and classmates who may not be telling the police everything about the tragic night. Next slide, please. Hemlock House. The follow-up to the critically acclaimed Liar's Beach is here. More than a year after childhood friends Michael Linden and Holiday Pregarit solved a headline-making murder on Martha's Vineyard, Linden is ready to start over as a freshman at Harvard, and he hopes to reunite with his old girlfriend Gear. But just as things start to heat up between them, a friend is found dead in Greer's dorm, Hemlock House. The police believe the death is the result of an overdose, but Linden suspects there's more to the story. Nearly everyone on campus has something to hide, and some mysteries are better left buried. And I'm passing it along to Erica.
Hi there, I have two more dystopian books for you. The first one is Zombie Apocalypse. This thrilling book is about twins who escaped from their survivalist home in a world overrun by zombies. The book is packed with unforgettable characters and reasons to run out of your nightmares. One of the main characters is a gold medal winning Special Olympics champion named Racer, who helps the twins train to outrun the monsters taking over the world. With zombies on their heels, will the twins ever be able to slow down? This book is filled with a diverse representation from neurodiversity to LGBTQ plus AI representation, making it have wide appeal among readers. Next slide. And finally, we have Riot Act. Riot Act follows a group of theater kids who challenge a political regime in an alternate 1991, where the authoritarian US government controls everything from books people read to the music they listen to what plays are performed. This book is perfect for fans of A.S. King and Mary Lou, and it will explore just how delicate democracy can be and how crucial it is for young people to fight for it. Next slide. Okay, and to finish up the YA section, here are some titles that are going into paperback this spring. And that concludes our title presentations for the summer 2024. We have some exciting news to share about our summer 2024 reading program for teachers and librarians. We have partnered with Penguin Young Readers on our Reading is an Adventure 2024 Summer Reading Challenge. Visit the URL on your screen for author videos and resources, and be sure to follow the link to request a free poster for your school or library. The link will be hyperlinked in a PDF that will be sent to attendees after this presentation. And for more information about our upcoming books and resources, please follow us on Pinterest, Facebook, and Twitter, and visit us online at rhteacherslibrarians.com. Lastly, ARCs and FNGs of all titles we have presented today are available for request on Edelweiss and NetGalley. And thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.
Thank you so much to the Random House Children's Books team and to our special guests for such a wonderful preview. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, title list, slide presentation, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones, like those you see here. If you're heading to PLA in Columbus this week, stop by the Booklist booth number 1317. We'll have free copies of our magazines, including the Guide to Graphic Novels, book giveaways, tote bags, buttons, and a reader recommendation wheel. Plus, don't forget to attend our book buzz on Thursday, April 4th at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, featuring your favorite adult publishers buzzing about upcoming hits. See you there. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, and one more huge thank you to our guests and our sponsor, Random House Children's Books. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.